Mr Seth Mazibuko. Usually I say abantu abangazele emaphepheni na ku-TV, they will use Seth Mazibuko. Otherwise, maungazi impela, if you're coming from Orlando East and where I was born and brought up, you will then know me as Usandile. So a lot of people in Orlando East will refer to me as Sandile. I was born in Orlando East. Don't ask me when, but I was born in Orlando East somewhere in the 60s, in very, very early 60s. And yes, I, at a very tender age of 16, and in the house where we're seated now, I got arrested. And then I was sentenced to Robben Island for years. I spent better part of my life on Robben Island. Actually, my matric, I actually got behind bars. My first degree in education, I got behind bars. So on Robben Island. And why was I in Robben Island? I was a student leader in 1976. I always boast about it that now I was the second in charge of the action committee that planned and led June 16. The main leader was Tsietsi Mashinini, who was the chairperson. And then I was his deputy. So after Tsietsi passed on, then who else takes over? So it just became automatic. But yes, I'm a father of 3 sweet, lovely kids. I love them dearly. And my firstborn daughter, Ubuhle Buyeza, Wanguza Ganalele Silungu. And then my second daughter, Ulizo Lunga, Aganalele Silungu. And then my boy, lastborn and the only boy, Uzanimpilo. So the first one, I had hope that Ubuhle Buyeza. Lo wesibili weza ezolungisa izwe. And then lona ke useletha impilo. Those are 3 of the best. From a very lovely woman. And one woman, not many women. One. Wow. So that's how I wouldn't encourage boys to be naughty. And I wouldn't even encourage boys to give a clap to a girl. I start 1976, if you dare touch a girl. 1976, June 16, uqala phansi. So respect them, ladies. Then they'll give you 3 kids. This year is the 85th anniversary of Orlando East. So we are talking to an 85-year-old Kasi. I thought we were going to say happy birthday, Orlando East. Orlando East. Now, what happened is that the background and history of Orlando East, there are older people than me who can tell that history more than I can. But as a community leader and as a child from here, I'm very, very sentimental about that history. And one of the people who writes very well about some of the pre-Orlando East era was Alan Patton in his book, Cry the Beloved Country. When you want to know about part of the birth of Orlando East, you just have to go through the Alan Patton book. There was a place called, you know the laws of apartheid at that time. Our fathers, used to be put in hostels or in single room places where they would stay and be taken out from emakhaya babalete emadrobheni to come and work for them. And some of them then brought in families or met women, and then they started having families. And those families were not given full houses, were not given houses. The concept of hostel, then there was a concept here your family hostel would call it. I know that now lately with the new democracy, they sometimes refer to them as family units. I don't like it because they're still not family homes. But what happened is that in an area around what is now called Orlando West, Kilani, Mzimhlope area, there was a place ababibizwa ngokuthiwa kuseMasakeni, a shanty town, and it ran right up to where the freeway is now, the right up to the back of Orlando Stadium in that area. Killer Road, yes, Killer Road. And then right up to you had the whole of that area referred to as Emasageni. And people usually ask, why Emasageni? Amasheks of those days were more made ngamasaga. And noma ngabe yenziwe ngamazenke or ngamaboards. But what used to happen is that now phezulu beyivalwa nangamasaga, and sometimes lamasaga people used to also paint them to make them ukuthi angadriphi amanzi, to hold water. So then bavale ngawo. That's art. That's very clever. But what happens at kulapho ke masaga abantu bebehlala khona bengenazindlu. Then a man of my high ethical leadership and values of leadership, Ubaba James Sofasonke Mbanza, as one of the community leaders of that time, fought very hard that now people should be removed there and be given proper houses. And those proper houses were supposed to be built in a particular land, and he used to fight, and sometimes he even went to jail. He was even given, and I remember there's a case that usually when people do not want to acknowledge Ubaba Mpanza, they usually say he killed someone. And the person he killed, it's like saying, why, what happened in 1976? Children were killed, and it was in that kind of a struggle that, Ubaba Mpanza fought and defended the community. Mawungaba umnikezi lento efuna ukuthi i-community enqindi do and then phelile, Now, but the point is that now he was a very, very ethical leader. He was a very, we lack in the new dispensation, in the new leadership, the caliber of leadership of Ubaba Mpanza. But then, Ubaba Mpanza used to be a horse rider, and used to be also amongst the very first black people to ride horses, besides abantu baseLesotho. But in the township, in these areas, he was the first one. And now lately, Ubaba Arthur Mafokate, he's also one of the people abasawenza lo msebenzi wamahashi. Now, Ubaba Mpanza, that is why the symbol of Ubaba Mpanza, wherever it is, it must have a horse. Because bokuyimoto yakhe uma eyolwa namabhunu ukuthi bamnikeze banikeza abantu izindlu and all that, ebengahambi nge-Mercedes Benz, and ebehamba nge-BMW, and ebehamba within those shacks, within the ngale hash. And he was even able then to get into each and every shack and be able to speak to people and be able to relate to people. Again, that's another ethical leadership. It's not your BMW that makes you a leader. It's supposed to be, you don't get into people with high status and look down on them. Instead, you move with the people. Busy now speaking and negotiating with the new mayor of Johannesburg, to give Ubaba Mpanza the rights of the city of Johannesburg, the freedom of the city of Johannesburg. And we are speaking to the city we're busy galvanizing the community that the name of Orlando Stadium should be actually changed to James Sofasonke Mpanza. Orlando Pirates, the club here at Orlando East, was amongst the first teams that actually played in Orlando Stadium and that were born in Orlando East. Bazibiza ngokuthi bangezam ezikamagebhula. Amagebhula okuyisithegezelo, a clan name kababa uMpanza. So yeza kampanza Orlando Pirates, and it's quite an honor, again, for even that Orlando Pirates acknowledges les ukuthi bangabakama Gebhuli. But I think there's still more that we need to do to try and uplift the name Kababa or Mpanza. There is Mpanza Street. There is Ubaba Mpanza. I'm going to go back a bit. Called Sofa Sonke Party. Sofa Sonke Party. So one of the streets, main streets, Paza. Sibiza Chiranguti Paza. That's actually the biggest street in Orlando East that cuts across Orlando East. Ibabizwe Paza ineculo futhi abakhulumi ngami uyindoda Mazibuko uyaziwa eSoweto edube ifake no Paza somewhere. So that Paza is actually Sofa Sonke Street. Now you must also then understand with Ubaba Mpanza then he used to go on a horse, ride on a horse, and even visit people. Ubaba Mpanza led a civic body called Sofa Sonke. And then Ubaba Mpanza, after that, then started strongly, negotiating with people. But there was one man who then decided that now, who was, I think, Scottish, Orlando Baragwanath. Orlando Baragwanath. The name Baragwanath, especially, comes from Orlando Baragwanath. The Orlando comes from that Orlando. So I think that is why even the current government, when they changed the name of that hospital, they retained Baragwanath, Basaswati Krisani Baragwanath. Because if they'd really removed the name Baragwanath, they would have removed the name of a person who actually donated to the community, yes, Soweto, who donated the land where Orlando was built. And, well, again, one argues, and I personally argue, akadonatanga bofana beselithathe ngengane owethu lomhlaba, but that's another conversation for another time. You understand what I'm trying to say? So the point I'm trying to make at the moment is that Orlando Baragwanath gave Ubaba Mpanza this piece of land, and it was out of this piece of land that then the Department of Bantu Affairs and Land Affairs and all that started now to then build houses in this piece of land. They were amongst the formal houses. Now, when you talk to anyone about Orlando East, will tell you, that we started in Orlando East with 2-room houses. La, where you are seated, it was a 2-room house. And we're 13 in a 2-room house. I started Istofusilana, Samalahle, bilisa amanzi la, ulale la, abo auntie bakho, abo malume bakho, abo bani bonke balapha mkwakho ekamereni ubaba nomama mhlawumbe nabanye abantwana. I remember there used to be also a very interesting one, kwakune folding bed. Those days they used to sell a folding bed. Actually, to think of it, maybe it can be a project, for particularly people abahlala emkhukhwini ukuthi kubuye that folding bed. Angithina sensihlala kuma-sleeper couch. Thina ke folding bed, what used to happen is that you'd bed go mattress and ninsimbinyana, then you will fold it, ime it. Laphana phezulu ibe na something like le okuyi headboard izoma lapha phezulu ibe ngathi itafulanyana. So emini abogogo nabobaba nabomama, they would close the folding bed and then bahlobise kube kuhle, and then phezulu kwa ebusuku lento bokuyikhabethe seyavuleka manje seyiba umbhede. So it was quite artistic. Now, but what was more important is that izindlu zase-Orlando East at that time, ama-ceiling ezindlu zase-Orlando, remember ngithe emasakeni, ama-ceiling ezindlu zase-Orlando East at that time bezenziwa ngamasaka. Besesihle kabi ufuthola indlu nje fakwe amasaka namaplanga in between, and then bese iyapendwa, beautifully painted and all that. There were 2-room houses, and 2-room houses were like high. In a way, mawubuya kwi 2-room yabona bokunalento lokuthi you are the poor of the poorest. And then came bokunezinye izindlu zama-3 room. And then ama-3 room, then beningconwana again. Now, zonke lezi zindlu zase-Orlando East, all of those houses had istupu. Now, late tupu, they would have to extend the house, then they'll put on what is to be called a veranda. Now, veranda is stupid, they're extending the house. So what was 3 room will be 4 room. What was 2 room, masiceda nalakai, sayifaka veranda, will be 3 room. Then you have opened up a space. But one thing that was good with Orlando is they did big yards, very huge yards, I must say. So, and one thing that was very interesting again those days is that izindlu zazingangcolanga nje bazingcolile manje eziningi, ngaleso sikhathi leso, ngoba there used to be khona ama-health inspectors. That's how oppressed we were. But I'm not saying health inspectors are oppressors, because they were not brought to us, in a way to democratically. Abelungu that time babecabanga ukuthi singama-fail pop if singabantu abamnyama, then they used to come in benza i-pest control, bezo-inspect ukuthi ibhokisi lamalahle lime phezulu, amagundwana wekho ngaphansi, and they would ingene nala endlini, spray for imbungulu and all those things. Whilst it was good, but it was not having good intentions. You understand what I'm trying to say? Now, Orlando East also had fun. Hello? Orlando East, if you talk Letambulu is a girl from here. So listen to that music. Even the Miriam Makebas got their vibe from here, but they were not from here. But they got their vibe. I mean, you sit down. Oh, another thing that mustn't forget about it. There were gangsters in Orlando East. But what was interesting about the gangsterism of Orlando East was that it was not a gangster to kill and to rob. Maybe rob, and then Lana, they used to dress to kill. Abo mama bethu behlanye labo baba labo puti labo ngaloso sikhathi leso, because style, and I can show you in the other room kusane radio liyadlalwa ngalezo malanga lawo, abobhuti baphumela ngaphandle ashaya iradio yakhe kuqeda uthole i-wedges, the first wedges yakhe uthenga i-PVD skipper ne-PVD underpants, and then the next thing that happened that Saturday igarden yakhe izoba clean, uzokhipha le-PVD yabonise ngayo nelo enze ingadi, yabona kushaya music, ama-hi-fi of those days. That was the fun. The communal life, yes, Orlando is still exists, but it is dying off now. You would not have these high walls that we have now. And but is ucela umuntu ukuthi awuhambe ucela itswayi, awuhambe ucela ushukela, awuhambe ucela just the other day someone came here, ezocela amafutha, in life, that is it. But what is beautiful with Orlando is it also produced Skarasono, who was Orlando Pirates, your Mashaba, the former national coach, comes from here. Your Jomosono comes from down the road from here. Umampinga, Mama Gasomizi, a street away from here. Nosomizi was born here, just a street away from here. Mshafan came from Durban to stay with Mama Gasomizi here, Gabo Mama Gasomizi. What? Desri Makote, Makote, the newsreader, comes from here. The 702 girl, what is her name, by the way? She has just written a book. She has just written a book now about Ruby. What do you Ru? That one got your final look in Thomason. Ready. They all come from here. Joe Caldwell will be amongst the journalists that Dala Ezala. Mam Sophie Tima is amongst the journalists that Dala as we are all. Judge Masipa is from here. Judge Masipa, the Oscar Pretorius, is from here. The first black physicist in the country is from here, Uchazban. And Orlando East also, what was very interesting, what was very interesting is that the Orlando East schools were church-based. So they were missionary schools. But what was interesting is that Orlando East became the United Nations of these schools. You have schools here, which was called Lopama, which was a Baptist school. You had a St. Mary's school, Mtonjeni. You had a Methodist, which was Emacheni, later on Liratong. You had Ditawana, which was St. John's. Now, I've counted American and English schools. You also had a Dutch Reformed school, Dutch, now this time. And the Dutch Reformed school was Tembaliche, and that used to be called Dutchy. And you had American Board School. You look at these nations meeting in Orlando East. How could have Orlando East not produced a black physicist, artists, and that's how rich. There is no township, I bet you, here or in the country that has had so many, schools, and that are missionary schools. One of the high-level schools that actually produced mathematicians, physicists, and all that was Orlando High, which is called The Rock, all the rains, and it produced heavy load of academics, particularly in the area of math, physics, and science. But now it's dwindling down. We'll revive it. Don't worry. Don't confuse us with Soshanguve, Pretoria. Soshanguve people, they were divided. The very name Soshanguve, you know what it stands for? Sotu, Shangan, Ngoni, Venda, Soshanguve. Here, we don't even know what you're talking about. That is why I call it a United Nations. We are also, people who came from Orlando East, there will be Sutu, there will be Zulus, there will be Xhosas, and Orlando East will be more like Alex, Ikasi, and people who came here came from Scrimmage Sutu, Scrimmage Zulu, Scrimmage Xhosa, and all that. But there was a lingo franca, yes, Orlando East, Kulunywa, Nibizan Manji Tsotsitao. Yeah, I mean, you had groups such as Ama Vikings. You had by the way, later part of it, later part of is Amakabasa. So there's no gangster that never came here. That was not any other gangster. Bumsomi gang, Luisa and Ama Vikings, Bumsomi gang, they came from Alexander and all that. But, there was that core relationship with Orlando East. So you had, you would not be scared in seeing a gangster person. You would not be, that is why even in Alex, people speak different languages, you understand? And it was only how apartheid forced us into schools that would then have Iskolo later, that came later, Iskolo Sabesut. In so much that one of the schools that is here, it used to be called before Ipatleng, but there were mixed students inside. Later on, when it became Zulu, it became Zifuneleni. You know what I mean? So there are a lot of schools, and schools that were missionary schools would not even have big issue with the issue of language. And as I said, that there was also a lot of art that came out of this. I was talking about, for instance, a journalist in the form of Umam Sophie Dima, who then gave birth, to a daughter who's still on TV today, who kept, the heritage and all that. And so really, Orlando East had its vibe. And Orlando East. You understand? Orlando East mokotini. We had a certain time to say, be shy like kotini, utole, even na Friday, bogiwa kakulu, bogune communal hall. There is a communal hall where Tina Gabanani of the 60s, we would go there, see gogune mahala piyo. Sasia kutwakse mahala, mahala piyo. One of the big names, Gwagu Jake Dooley, who was amongst the first black boxers. who actually out of kuwina eshaya umlungu ngoba mnandi emhlabeni. And then in boxing, and then the next thing that happened is wakhiwa swimming pool. The swimming pool that is there now down in Orlando East. That swimming pool was called Jake Tool, and that's where the name came from. And yes, Jake, who Jake Tool, you see. And there were shops, business used to be vibrant in Orlando East. Kuna bobaba bobo machet, kuna bobaba ababumson, who again, as part of the project Kampanza yala Orlando East, they built umasipala built itoro ezinama lona makhulu nje phezulu. There's still the Rakau here. There's still that. There are a number of them. As kwakhona esinye ngala ngasepower babethi SD, kwakhona esinye babethi Good Luck. So they were also part of the landmark of Orlando East. So Orlando East was business, Orlando East was education, Orlando East was arts and culture, Orlando East, and again that spirit of being together was born eMasageni. Our parents, our great-grandparents moved with that into Orlando East. And as they moved into Orlando East, even now, you're gonna mothole abosisi abasesitela abosisi abeshaya amagorey abophenduka labo uthi mawubashela yabo mamshela usisi address yakhe akhiphi okapi akubhalele address phansi. Hayi lento enyenzayo nina nikhiphela amantombazane okapi ratha okay khiphela okapi akubhalele address yakhe. And sometimes that's why ezokwenzani ukunikeza address ye open space. So you must be careful ngoba uzokulanda uzofuna ukubona ukuthi uzanalo phetheni and all that. Orlando East used to have open spaces when Orlando East was built, they also didn't also build also shops. There were also bathrooms. Kuna spaces even now. La kule strati they would leave a space ukuthi kube bathrooms. So abantu bonke bale strati bazobhava lapho. Bengeke jardi. Bongeke endlini bathroom. Bonke abantu bale strati babhava kula bathrooms. And then bokunabo toilets for instance now. Bokunama packet. Waste used to be collected to come up again and all of this. I use the title of that book, Alan Patton, Cry the Beloved Country, Cry the Beloved Orlando East. The whole history of Orlando East is undermined. Orlando East is supposed to be known as the mother of Soweto. So Sonke Mpanza is supposed to be known as the father of Soweto. Do you hear of that? Do you hear a person talking about that? Better part of what used to be fun, where the admin offices are now, the municipality offices, that used to be a circle, huge circle, a plantation. It had trees. That used to be fun around this time. When it is summer, when it is Christmas, people converge there. One other thing that was a highlight of Orlando East was the number of circles. These traffic circles of Esinas. All of them are nyaope now and are used to rape our mothers and our girls. The spirit that existed of the Mpanza spirit of respecting leadership, of amassing amongst those that we lead, it's gone. I miss Orlando East. I cry and say, cry the beloved country. I thought when we were getting our freedom, some of these heritage and historical features will be revitalized. I thought by now we won't be having Orlando Stadium. It's enough that we have Orlando but we'll be having a Mpanza Stadium James of Asonkampans. I thought we'll be having one of the buildings, one of the streets called Scarasono. I thought some other clubs, I thought we'll have a street called Letamulu. I thought we'll have a school of arts. That's still my wish, I pray. A school of sports, arts, and culture kind of academy that then will bring in, will bring in those days, of music, of art, where we'll get, the Somizis, the Mama Cooks, Mama Gasomis, Banina, Mapinga. Yes. And then where we'll get the daughter to Clementine, the daughter to Mam Sophie team, coming in and assisting our children, to lift themselves up in the form of arts and culture and sports, instead of lifting themselves up in rape, and also in drugs. Let me tell you the other thing that saddens me. Orlando East is dirty. Dirty. I challenge you. You won't go a long distance from your Ngakaboni dumping area. Not even allocated dumping area. Abantu, they just dump anywhere. Just imuma, sewage pipes. They sometimes throw their own babies, maybe a phone in there. Now, what am I trying to say? There must be a campaign, if I were to advise, that of reviving the Orlando East. And then let that one thing I forgot. After Orlando East, also was about Pimville and all that. If you look at the shape of the houses, that's a Pimville. For instance, Orlando West. Let me take Orlando West. Oh yes, there's that argument that which one came first, Pimville or Orlando. I dare say Orlando East, because Orlando East was people getting land, okay, in a way for themselves, and after getting it, they come from Emasagin. We are not talking about people kwakhiwe imiddlelands and then abantu babuye endaweni ezihlukene, then they come to Middlelands. But then what I'm trying to say, Pimville came round about the same time, and I must mention this also. The two towers that are the landmark of Soweto. Club laphayana. Chafbuzi, and all that. Let me tell you what happened there. There were 12 pipes, smaller pipes, and the two main ones, which were the two towers, where we were getting our power, electricity and all. But what was interesting was that where Chafbuzi is, there were houses, Zama whites, and they were enclosed there. Whites that used to then service and work a power. Where UJ is, you see those houses in that, those houses used to be whites, Liz Ebezi Sebenza, a power, Nagamaspar. Now what was interesting about that time, Bunomshin Okalayo from a power, next to where those towers are, on 7 o'clock. So, Mount Shiloh 7 o'clock, car machine. Should put me a school. But that's how we, as Orlando East people, then identified ourselves. 7 o'clock, we are quarter past 7, we are colorful. We are Puma, we are a school. We scholars get 8. There was another one. Umshin Damba. 25 to 5. Both more color, everyone 25. No matter how many cherry at the time. Masha 25 to 5. Fanulu Kurule, Mofana Baswa, Kupeg. Oh, Mama, no Baba, Sabaya William 17. None of the people from Pimville even understand what I'm talking about. You understand what I'm trying to say? So, look, Pimville came around about that same time. When Orlando East was getting developed, then Pimville was starting to come together. And again, you must also look at the shapes of the houses. I said 2 room, 3 room there. Look at Pimville. For instance, to us, the richest, Tinala Orlando East, abantu ababe rich, makuthiwa rich abantu. Mase sokwakhiwa Soweto, seyikhulu Soweto. Bokuyi Orlando West. Isn't just Orlando West, phela besinama room, namazinyo, nama-toilet inside. You understand? And nayi Pimville used to be one of those places ebesizifisa. Kwaba nezimpi of First World and Second World War, kwaqala kwavela nabo Dube. Abo Dube ke most part of Dube was military people who used to be around Dube. But thola nezindlu ke amohlele Dube phela ubu-rich. Hlala emfulo ubu-rich. Izindlu ezinkulu thina before uzibone edrobheni bowuzibone Dube si mfulo. You understand what I'm saying? The first golf park, you know, Bogimflo Park, lapho kwaba bethu kade bedlala igolf sebe now abotlefanyana, you know, and all of that. So what I'm trying to say is that yes, if actually Orlando East twin ne Pimville ophume qala Orlando East. Okay. In that illustration, if I can give you that, you know, that's what I'm trying to say. Otherwise, there's no other way. Okay. I sound like a record in a scratch, but let me say it again. The words that were said by Solomon Mahlangu when he went down to the gallows to be hanged by apartheid police. He said to his mother, "Mama, the tree of liberation shall be watered by the blood of the martyrs, of the heroes." To me, and I know so because Solomon was one of the leaders in 1976. And he said to the mother, "Please tell that to my people." And those people that also have to be told those words is the youth as Orlando East, Soweto, and the country. Solomon Mahlangu, by saying the tree of liberation shall be watered by the blood of the martyrs, meant that you as young people should enjoy the fruit of that tree. You as young people, if you can't enjoy the fruit of the tree, at least enjoy the shade of the tree. One thing that he wanted to emphasize, you as young people, don't cut off the tree. Young people of Orlando East, immediately when you spend more time in the bedroom rather than the boardroom, you are cutting off the tree. If you spend more time queuing for imali eqolo, you save or a checkers and all over there, okay, you are actually cutting off the tree of liberation. You should not be queuing there, okay? You should be queuing getting tenders. You should be queuing getting to school. You should be queuing getting into business. You should be queuing repairing and reconstructing Orlando East. I'm angry. I'm very angry and bitter with young people by Orlando East. They've cut off the culture of Orlando East. I'm angry with most part of the leadership of Orlando East. They've undermined the heritage of Orlando East. My advice to many of young people, Orlando East is rich with history and heritage. And please, go out there, collect that history and heritage, and make money out of it. And develop Orlando East out of that money. Don't feel it's wrong to make money or to be entrepreneurial by not using your history and heritage. Use your history and heritage to reconstruct and develop Orlando East, and to also reconstruct and develop yourselves.
as young people. You can't be creating and protecting and preserving and promoting a history as Orlando East, ngama drugs, ngama condoms, ngama rape, ngama dumping. You are not. Let's fight the very first step. What we are saying as leaders here is that we need to sit with our young people and start a process of RDP, reconstruction and development plan, of themselves. How are they going to reconstruct and develop themselves? How are they going to reconstruct and develop Orlando East? How are they going to preserve, protect, and promote the history and heritage of Orlando East? And how are they going to make money out of it? Gosh. Ambani magini tu.